They have, the Russians are on their side. They are supporting them to a great extent. The Chinese are very much well in bed with Taliban today. We have seen their visits. So they have full support. As far as Pakistan is concerned, it is a double-edged weapon for the Pakistan.
Hello and welcome once again to Nation Talks. It's a Metamorphes initiative and I'm 𝗀𝗲𝗺𝗃𝗺 Prakash. Metamorphes is a non-profit voluntary group forged by veterans aimed for nation building, restoring social values in society and nurturing the lost glory of veterans, thereby contributing in whichever ways they can. What happened in Afghanistan will be written in history with the tears and blood of the Afghan people. What has panned out in around media has been nothing less than horrific. US forces abruptly left, Taliban took over, Afghan forces gave up without any, they gave up very easily. President Ashraf Ghani fled overnight. People were seen clinging to the plane just to get out of the clutches of Taliban, that means Afghanistan. We saw horrific pictures of children being handed over across the fences. Maybe the parents thought that they would have a better future or be safe outside. In hindsight, it looked like a Hollywood plot. But sadly, people, particularly women, are living in the fear of losing their freedom and identity. The desperation is palpable. Taliban is already in the seat of power. As we speak, people are mustering courage to protest. The freedom that they enjoyed for the last 20 years is not what they would want to forego. But that's a tough call. Backed by Pakistan all through, Taliban is seeking legitimacy from the international community. Although it's one thing to run a terrorist group, and it's entirely different to run a country. So what kind of Afghanistan will emerge with Taliban control? How is the region going to be affected? Will India give legitimacy to Taliban? Such and many more questions are still lingering in the minds of people, which they really are looking for answers. I have with me my two esteemed guests. I'll first introduce you to Major General Sanjay Meston. He has served in Afghanistan as military attaché from 2012 to 14. And my second guest is Ambassador Anil Trigunayat. He's been ambassador to Libya, Jordan, and Malta. So I'll start asking Major General Meston, what explains the passive giving up of the Afghan armed forces to the Taliban takeover?
𝗀𝗲𝗺𝗃𝗺, it's a very, very appropriate question being asked everywhere. The fact of the matter is, I have been there on ground with these Afghan forces from 2011 to 14. So what I have seen, and I have interacted with a lot of ISAF or the NATO forces over there, including their top operations officers, 3-star generals, etc. Let me tell you, the feedback I always got from them was that these are much better forces, much better than anyone, including since the same people had operated in Iraq. The people who are in leadership, I would say colonels, brigadiers, and so forth, including lower cadres, they were all erstwhile mujahids or jihadis who were trained that time by ISI to fight the Russians. And we all are aware that some of our IMA batches who passed out, like my own course, we had a few of them. And 𝗀𝗲𝗺𝗻𝗲𝘀 𝗀𝗍𝒏𝒂, who's part of Taliban, he was one batch junior to me. They were straight from India. Actually, they flew to Islamabad, Peshawar, and there they were trained. And they were launched into battle. And out of the list which I managed to obtain when I was a defense attaché of all the officers who had passed out from IMA, NDA, between the period of 74 to 82, there were about 39 officers who passed out. Now, all said and done, when the army was formed and we were training them and various people were training them, I have been to their training areas, including with the special forces. They were motivated, they were good. And I have seen them accrediting very well in some operations. Once Taliban, including Punjabi Taliban, they were fighting on the green zone where the Indian embassy was also located on large number of embassies. And let me tell you, these soldiers, without US support, they cleared those in a 2-day operation, and there were about 10 Taliban. I had gone there. So they were motivated, they were good. Now, what has happened now? All of us are aware, and they were also aware. I used to talk to the soldiers, sir, peace talks chal raha hai. We used to talk in Hindi, sir, peace talks chal raha hai, ab kahan se ladai hogi? So the soldiers were mentally aware that some peace is going to happen, and finally Taliban is going to come in some form or the other, maybe as a coalition government. So lack of political directive, and I've been told that Ashraf Ghani was also calling some of the core commanders ki don't fight, just give up. So this is another thing. So there was no leadership, and ethnicity problem was there. You know, in the Ministry of Defense, all the postings were based on your connections or nepotism. You know, Hazara and Tajik and Pashto and so forth. So they were really not the true leaders. The youngsters were motivated; they were true leaders. So then, of course, is lack of logistics. You know, the Americans left all of a sudden from Bagram Air Base, and they had really no logistic support. Ammunition was a problem, clothing was a problem, and salaries was a problem, and all this put together has actually, you know, I think it was some directive or something ki just surrender and aane do, kyunki shayad peace aa jayegi. So this is what exactly has happened.
Ambassador, if I can come to you, the government formation is being worked out. That Mullah Baradar is there, and maybe they're trying to, you know, figure out how can they go ahead. So what is the governance model do you see taking shape, and will it last at all, particularly, you know, knowing that Pakistan has a deep hand into it?
Well, you are right, absolutely. In fact, even in the past 20 odd years that the Americans have been there, frankly, there was no governance. The country has been in a war zone, and it has been all through, whereas I would say I fully agree with General Meston. The fact is that Taliban have been a fighting force. They have been a guerrilla force. They have been trained by the Pakistanis and others in the strategic management and getting the strategic depth. So they have been making the dent. And the Americans, when they realized that they cannot win it, they just suddenly decided that we need to get out of here somehow during Obama's time, and which was formalized by Trump. Now, when they were formalizing, and he rightly said that the Taliban were the people they were talking to. The Afghan government was basically not really the part of it when the Doha Agreement was signed and the contours were decided. But what surprised one most was the way the advance took place. It was a negotiated surrender everywhere, most of the places. And the tribal factor must not be discounted as far as the country is concerned. I mean, and if you have been to the tribal belts, you realize that for them, the tribal loyalties are far more important than even whichever place, whether they are in the government or the army. So this is something that also played on the minds of the people. Thirdly, there was tremendous corruption, and there was a very major problem. Now, the fact that they did not want from the very beginning to deal with Ashraf Ghani. And so Ashraf Ghani had no choice but to run away. Otherwise, he was fearing the fate of Najibullah. Now, in 20 years, we have seen a lot of change in the way things have gone. People have changed of Afghanistan, irrespective of whatever Taliban may want to do or the other community may want to do. The people themselves are there. So 100,000 Taliban cannot control physically. So they have, when people say that they have changed, means they are realizing the limitations that they will have going forward. So they have captured it, but at the same time, they want to govern now. Now, to govern that, you need the people who've been working, like when they asked that we are giving the amnesty to everybody, or when they are saying that women can come and work and the government offices will be open, that they know that the people have been trained in certain kind of professions, which Taliban obviously is not used to doing it, even though some of their key leaders are there, but majority of them are simple fighters. So that is the reason that they are looking at some kind of a unity government, which will also provide them certain legitimacy vis-a-vis the world. Now, this transitional government which will come up, if it has, for example, Sirajuddin Haqqani as the finance minister, as somebody said, you can say goodbye to the $9.5 billion that are lying in the US bank. So, I mean, the guy is a terrorist, and he is declared terrorist, and he is the main arm of Pakistan in Afghanistan. Mullah Baradar, he is the face today, political face. There is a religious supremo, but at the same time, he is the guy who's everybody is saying that he'll be the head of it. They have, the Russians are on their side. They are supporting them to a great extent. The Chinese are very much well in bed with Taliban today. We have seen their visits. So they have full support. As far as Pakistan is concerned, it is a double-edged weapon for the Pakistan now under the changed circumstances. Because once Taliban becomes a government, then obviously with the others, how much role they will play. Then they also have to deal with the issue of Amrullah Saleh, who has declared himself as interim or caretaker government in Panjshir. Now Masood is supposed to be helping him. That's what they're saying. Now Hamid Karzai is playing an important role, and he is very close to the Taliban and has his hopes. And if you remember, the first thing when the Taliban came into Kabul, he was the one who put up his three daughters' picture, and he said, I'm in Kabul, I'm not going anywhere. So we are going to see a lot of changes, and now international community's role is very important. But at the same time, because everybody is on his own at the moment, frankly, and they're trying to really somehow have good word or good things with them. And India, of course, has some less cards in its hands.
Now, Major General Meston, don't you think the real problem is and always was Pakistan? That wasn't really handled well by the US, for that matter, or anyone, the earlier powers that came in.
Absolutely right. The entire problem is actually Pakistan. That is the Pakistan Army and the ISI. I'll just give you a small statement of President Ashraf Ghani. Is a Pakistanis feel that behind every rock in Afghanistan, there is a military intelligence officer from India. And therefore, your 1 inch of activity creates 1 mile of problem for us. I'm leading on to something. Now I used to interact with the ISAF, including that time the ISAF commander, 4-star General Anil. He had created a team known as Red Fort, and I interacted with them. Can you believe in my interaction? They said, General, you have so many, bases here, and you are doing all these activities. I said, you have been here since 2001. Prove me anywhere where you have seen Indian activity. We have only got consulates, besides in, of course, Kabul, the embassy. In Jalalabad, we have a consulate in Herat, in Kandahar, and Madar-e-Sharif. Beyond this, you prove it to me anywhere. What I'm trying to say is the Pakistani game plan is so good, and what Ambassador was also highlighting, Ambassador Anil. The issue is somehow Pakistan has been able to convince the international community, fool them, literally fool them, and play the victim card of whichever card it is, that they even get away with anything. I met Britishers, civilian Britishers. You know what they used to say? In Afghanistan, even if a flush chain is not working in anyone's toilet, the Afghan population will blame ISI. Can you believe? These are the languages of these people who, it is the Pakistani language. This is the kind of, brainwashing they have done of everyone. So the root cause of entire problem is not Afghanistan, not Taliban. I would say it is Pakistan, ISI, and Pakistan Army. So they are good in torture, killings, arrestings, manipulating the whole world, and the whole world, I do not know how it is falling into the trap. It is creditable that the government of India and our machinery has not fallen into this trap till date. And I think the true enemy of the whole region is Pakistan. The world needs to unite, sort them out. Everything is being done by them. They are the brain. So this is a total Pakistan game plan, and they are now fooling the whole world. And now let me also tell you, they are going to shift their bases to Afghanistan, all training bases from, Fatah and all these areas. And they'll convince the whole world, look, we are not the problem. We are the good boys. Afghanistan, the problem. So I would totally, squarely, and in every manner put the blame entirely on Pakistan Army and ISI.
Also that, the sources have been saying that Afghanistan as such, the Afghanis they hold India as very friendly nation, and they have no enmity or any bad feeling about India and Indians. It's more about Pakistan and its perspective, right? Okay, moving to Ambassador Trigunayat. How do you see the geopolitics being shaped in the region and at large?
Well, Preeti, the thing is, let me just begin where General Meston left. You know, if you come to just simply analyze, we have to see that, and I know when Russia started coming towards Pakistan, despite our great close relationship, and every time this Mr. 𝗀𝗶𝗶𝘀, who was their special envoy, and I used to meet him very frequently, and I asked him, I said, I mean, why are you getting so close to Pakistan? Do you get anything? His answer always used to be, you know, we have to because of Taliban. Neither China nor the Russians, the big powers, were happy that the Americans have come in Afghanistan in their backyard. But at the same time, when they were leaving, they were not happy either, right? Because they wanted somebody else to pay for the security of the country or whatever was left of it. So what we see is, and I always say that Pakistan is as General Meston also said, the Pakistan is really the key to the whole thing. And if the Americans frankly wanted to control Taliban or control Afghanistan or any movement of this, they could have easily done that. But as General was saying that they thought that India was really playing some mischief there, that clearly shows what kind of a poor intelligence they really were dependent on from Pakistan for Pakistan. This is precisely what has done them in. You know, the Pakistan double-crossed them thoroughly, and they totally depended blindly on them. Secondly, as far as China is concerned, I think that China has been working with them since 2018-19, not from now with Taliban. Initially, they had created their own troika with Pakistan, Afghanistan, and China, in which they were working closely. And then they started working directly with Taliban, and also invited the Taliban leadership, including Mullah Baradar, very recently. And there, what they discussed. And now China's basic two concerns are there in my view. One is, of course, their fears of in Xinjiang and Afghanistan, where there's a border, the Wakhan corridor, from where the Uyghur Muslims, you know, and the Turkestan Islamic movement, which is operating out of Afghanistan. So they want Taliban to control it so that the extremism does not go over to China further. I mean, there is a problem already there. So that's one thing. Secondly, I also feel that Pakistan is unable to control Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, which is dead against Islamabad establishment. And so they have been involved also in various activities and against the Chinese in Balochistan and other places, for which they always tend to blame India. Now, they know that Tehreek-e-Taliban, which owes allegiance to Taliban, main Taliban leadership, can only be controlled by Taliban. So that is why they are also coming into it and trying to court the Taliban. Thirdly is the geoeconomic. Of course, the BRI, the CEPC that we are talking about, going through Peshawar-Kabul road, going through Central Asia and other places. So that is something, is their major game plan, apart from about $1 trillion, nearly the opportunity in lithium and other rare earth materials and minerals. So China is looking at it from that perspective. And for Taliban, it suits them because they have seen everywhere that China, even you may call it debt diplomacy or whatever it is, but at the end of the day, they create infrastructure, they are able to do things, deliver it much faster. How far they will go in will depend on the stability that they can help bring out. So they are also telling the Taliban, control terrorism, do not allow terrorism to go from, so it's in their interest, not for India, but it is in their own interest. Likewise, the Russians are also now getting their own security concerns. You see, the only two countries that did not really evacuate their embassies, mainly apart from Pakistan, were China and Russia. But of course, the time will tell how Taliban is able to, as I said, will be able to govern. Taliban has very strategically worked out the whole, they are not only militarily, they have strategized, but also financially. They have taken over all the checkposts, right, and today, so that the revenue stream continues to come in. They are also very much into the opium trade and all that. And so that is which is roughly about $28-30 billion trade. So they are looking at from that point of view. And as far as arms ammunition is concerned, courtesy Americans, they have plenty of them. Now they need only Pakistanis who are very much adept in using those weapons to train them further. So that's what we are looking at today.
Just taking this forward, Taliban is in possession, General Meston, of all the arms and sophisticated arms and ammunitions and even air power How do you think they can actually use it or misuse it? And what about the security concerns of India for that matter?
Yeah, coming on to the assets which they have got into the armory. Firstly, let's talk about the major assets. It is the air assets, and of course, the Humvees, etc., and some artillery pieces. Very few, because they really did not equip them much with artillery, and a few are tanks which they already hold in the inventory. Now, these are all in the Taliban hand. So these three assets, probably, I do not know how and where they can use it. They will simply reach Pakistan, like the way it happened earlier. The Russian weapons all reached Pakistan. Now the other weapon systems in the surveillance devices, the night surveillance devices, and the small arms. Now M4 is a very effective weapon. Our special forces are also equipped with M4. Now similarly, the M4 has fallen into their hands. So some of it will obviously go to Pakistan. All these rationalization, distribution of these weapon systems will continue. Automatic machine guns, large numbers have been seized. Humvees, etc. Again, they will go to Pakistan straight, because in what manner they will use it. So this is what will give them overall. Now, how does it affect India? See, presently, I feel the Taliban is in this stage, or ISI is in this stage. See, they have to consolidate their gains. Right now, situation is very fluid. Political situation is very fluid. Geostrategically, all the neighbors may be affected in some or the other manner. And for all you don't be surprised, it may even hit Pakistan ultimately, if the world powers are able to play these assets to their advantage.
So my last question to both of you all, I mean, quick answer is that, is it a test for India's foreign policy? I mean, we are left like literally friendless in the neighbor. Quick.
Yeah, it's a test, definitely a test for India's foreign policy. I think the biggest dilemma which India today will face is, should we recognize Taliban or not? I think this is the biggest dilemma presently we will face, because shortly the entire international community perhaps may start recognizing them the day the government is announced. Now for India, let me be very candid, very difficult decision, because if we recognize Taliban, that means we have recognized our formidable enemy, that is Pakistan, ISI. If we don't, it has again consequences. And if we recognize Taliban, the people of Afghanistan, where we have solid impact, they love us the maximum. I would say India has loved the first in the entire this thing. So that also may be impacted. And if we don't, then it has got its own consequences. Not an easy decision, but I can just sum it up. Government of India has to deliberate with all possibilities. And I think keeping a national interest in mind and the interests of the people of Afghanistan in mind, we'll perhaps have to take this decision.
Ambassador, your take?
General has spoken like a diplomat, absolutely, having both sides. Frankly, I tell you, the Taliban has said it, and it's a fact also. The Taliban per se does not have anything directly against India in that sense. And the fact that they have said that on Kashmir and others, they say this is between India and Pakistan, and they've been saying it for last years. I don't believe them on their word. Never. You can't trust them. But at the same time, they're showing these. They have invited you back to complete their projects, those projects which are there. I'm not saying we should be the first one and run and hug them. No. Why we did not talk to Taliban? When the Afghan and Taliban were discussing, when Americans and Taliban were discussing, when China and Russia and everybody else is discussing, what are we waiting for? Why couldn't we have our own assets created or channels of communications directly? You know, it would have not impacted us in any bad way either. But we would not be in that kind of situation where we have to today depend on Russians or the Iranians to sort of protect our interests. And if there is any opportunity for human rights efforts in the region, in Afghanistan, we must be the first one, as we have always been in our neighborhood.
Yeah. So the general thing that comes out is we still have to wait and watch and see how things unfold. Thank you so much, Ambassador Trigunayat, Major General Sanjay Meston, to have joined me on my show, Nation Talks. And thank you for coming and sharing your experiences and stories with us. For my viewers, don't forget sharing, subscribing, liking, and pressing the bell icon for more such events. Do write to us in our comment section if you like the like what we bring to you, and we'll be happier to bring more such discussions to you on contemporary issues. Now I'll be back soon with a new episode of Nation Talks. Till then, stay safe, stay happy. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.